Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. And tonight we have a live guest, Mr. Captain Dadpool, who's an actual dad. So it's not a hollow claim. Would you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, maybe why you're on YouTube at all, and a little bit what you're doing about YouTube with YouTube?
Yeah, so I got my start on TikTok by accident, I guess. I am an atheist with a bachelor's degree in biblical theology. Yeah, you Titan. Oh wait. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. ADHD problems. So I got my start on TikTok. I amassed a following that I did not predict. And people wanted to know more and see more of me. And I was like, okay. So a lot of people wanted me to start a YouTube show. But I did. I had someone come on, approach me and ask or offer to help me with that. And so we got set up. I have a co-host. Her name is Natalie Nat. She's a professional geoarchaeologist, so we do very well. And we have a guest on each week, usually from TikTok. And we discuss pretty much whatever the guest wants to talk about. The guest picks the topic, so it's just a general casual conversation about a topic. And it's a lot of fun. I keep things casual, and we have a good time. Other than that, I'm also on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. But by far most people know me from TikTok. But yeah, I am trying to put more focus into my YouTube show as of late.
Well, we should have to encourage everyone who watches this now and in the future to go and check out your YouTube channel. What's the name of it?
Thank you. It's called. You can look up just my name, Captain Dadpool, or Nerds Plus Heresy. The show is called Nerds and Heresy, but we went with Nerds Plus Heresy because, yeah. There's also a link in my bio if you follow me on TikTok or Twitter or anything, that you can find a link in my bio for there. Yeah.
And we should have you send that to me so it can be attached under this video, make it easier for people in the description.
Appreciate that.
Okay. No problem at all. Okay, would you repeat your credentials on religion again, please?
So I was a very dedicated Christian for... Hold on one second. What's the matter, son? I can't help you right now. Just lay down in your bed. You want a hug? All right. You're fine. Go sleep.
Love you.
Love you too. You got a field trip in tomorrow. Get to sleep. All right. Sorry.
Quite all right.
Dad problems.
And speaking of dad problems, thanks for all your dad work, because right now you are one of the most important humans on the planet.
Yeah, it's not the easiest gig, but
it's
but
not.
I can. Anyway, back to your. Sorry,
I'm just very happy to see someone taking it seriously enough to say that it's not an easy gig.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's tough. Like being a stay-at-home parent is great. Don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of days that I genuinely miss having a job. Like I want to get out of the house. I want to get away from them, as horrible as that sounds. Like I want to go, I don't know, do some construction work. But yeah, it's a unique struggle. But I'm not going to complain about it. Anyway,
so you were talking about your history of education and religion.
Yeah, I was a very dedicated Christian for 15 years. I was a member of the Assemblies of God Pentecostal Church. I went on missions trips, evangelism, street evangelism, seminars, and I did everything. I was very, very obsessed with my Bible. I read it every day, and I got to know it very well. I was convinced that I was led to a position in ministry by several of my elders that I respected in spiritual positions who spoke prophetically over me and God is calling you to ministry. So I went with that. Made sense. I was very passionate about the Bible. I wanted to learn more. So I went to college. I went to college for 2 years and I couldn't afford it anymore. So I joined the military, as you do. was an infantryman in the army, went to Iraq for a year, did that whole thing. And when I got out, I had the GI Bill, which paid for my education. So I was like, I'll continue my education. I had to start all over because I went to a different college that was associated with a different denomination. So I did 4 more years, and I graduated. And I even did a year of graduate work through Liberty University, but ended up stopping doing that too because I was deconstructing, and I was like, "There's no point in doing this." So yeah, I have a bachelor's degree, a cumulative of 7 years of formal education. And I am still very, very much intrigued, even more so now than I was as a Christian, about the Bible and what it actually says and what it teaches. So yeah, that's
a decent summation. Seems like. So would you agree with me that I mean, for me personally, it was embarrassing when I realized I'd been duped.
Yes, absolutely. Especially if you're a charismatic Pentecostal, like I spoke in tongues. We had like healing services. Like I spent my Saturdays going to the streets, and I literally led people to the Lord, like in strip malls. So yeah, I was looking back on it. I was like, oh, cringe, for sure.
I don't know about you personally, but for me, even worse than that is if I'd been duped twice on the same topic. If I had deconverted out of a religious stance and was embarrassed by that, twice harder is to enter back into a positive religious stance.
Yeah, and there's some people that do that.
Yes. So I'm one of those. Because from ages 12 to 42, I was an anti-theist.
From 12 to 42. Okay.
Yes. Of course, that means, up until 12, I was raised as Roman Catholic, but found an excuse good enough to convince Mom that I shouldn't have to go to church anymore. Now, the rationale was I had to find a tactical way to stop my own rape by a Catholic priest.
Oh, wow.
Which was in charge of the church we were attending, which Mom was going to keep attending.
Wow.
Without hurting him and without hurting Mom. So instead I said, Jesus is not made of plaster. She took the point and made me not go anymore. I was the only kid who lived under her roof who got to quit going to church before they left the house. So then again at age 42, I was essentially, it was thrust on me a reading frame that I didn't want and was hard to accept. But to this point, and this is where you come in, I've been unable to disprove it as an accurate reading frame that's coherent within itself, has predictive power, is correspondent to reality, and has more explanatory power of the future and of spiritual texts than it raises questions.
Okay. Elaborate for me.
I would give an example.
Your current position?
My current position, generally theist.
Okay. What is it you want to discourse about?
Okay, well, first I should speak of my motivations for even having these conversations. It's twofold. Great.
Sorry, I don't even know what questions to ask. I'm just meeting you for the first time. So
this is the way conversations start, don't they? General and clumsy, trying to feel out where the other person's brain is. That's what I'm trying to do with you now. That's just how it is. So it's twofold motivation. One, if this is the correct way to look at these ancient religious stories, and I express it well enough that someone can get the general concepts, then that would help them in a very, very difficult time of their life which would be post-physical death or living into end times, whichever way that goes, if it's true. If it's not true, I'd like to know that.
Okay. So then how would you demonstrate your position?
So there's lots of ways. I like the scientific method of forensics.
That's a new one.
When you don't have physical evidence to something, how do you figure what did or will happen? And it's an interesting and difficult question. Although there are understandable, knowable, applicable guidelines for this sort of thing, which is why I mentioned predictive power. Does it contain information that I was unaware of, which is plausible in reality, at least in potential?
Okay.
It is one of the more persuasive things, I think.
Okay. So just giving a heads up, philosophy is somewhat of an Achilles heel of mine. I deal more in textual criticism of the text. I don't.
I can do it that way.
In philosophy, yeah.
I can totally do it that way, no problem.
No, see, we can do whatever you want. I'm just letting you know, and your viewers know. Like this is not an area I'm not going to be able to be as authoritative as I normally am on. Because that's what I study in my free time is textual.
Well, I want to work with your specialty. I don't want to try to.
Well, the problem is when you make a claim to the existence of God, you can't really rely on textual criticism to disprove it. You kind of have to rely on philosophy, right?
That depends.
You're claiming that you believe in God. That's fine. If you claim to believe in the Christian God, okay, we can go there. If you want to claim to believe in the Muslim God, we can go there. But if you're claiming that the supernatural exists and your idea of God exists, that's going to be harder for me to attack because I don't know the nuances of your position in that regard.
Fair enough.
If that makes sense.
I think the description of God universally is understandable, knowable, provable in reality in a set of immaterial constructs, specifically social ideals.
Okay.
And social ideals, what's that?
So that sounded really scripted. I don't.
Oh no, I just made that up, but it's what I think is true.
Hats off to you.
That there are first of all immaterial constructs like math is an immaterial construct.
Well, math is just a language that we attributed to objective reality. I'm sure
all languages are immaterial constructs.
Right.
There is no physical word blue.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore.
It's just a means of communication between our species.
Right.
I wouldn't say that's evidence of the supernatural, though.
Well, would you say there is wisdom?
There is wisdom. That's an interesting question. Yes, but I would argue that wisdom is discovered through experience and knowledge.
How it's attained is another question, but it does exist.
I struggle with saying whether it exists or not because it's just a label attached to a concept.
Okay, does the concept exist?
It exists in our mind and in our understanding. But does it objectively exist? I can't say yes or no. I can say it's a way we describe something.
Okay, what is it we're describing?
We're describing knowledge through our experiences, I guess.
Okay, do those experiences objectively exist?
To the individual, but not to the
Is that not the best we're going to have anyway?
Yeah, that's probably the best we can have.
Okay, so the best we can have is our subjective memory of an objective event. Then that objective event happened, it's objective.
Nothing's really objective.
I understand that.
Even if we grant that, it's objective to the individual and not to the collective mass.
Fair enough. All of us have experiences. Experiences exist. Wisdom can be gained from experience. Yes, absolutely. Wisdom about experience can exist, does exist.
Wisdom without experience.
I said about.
Oh, a wisdom about experience.
Sure.
Does exist.
Sure.
Sure. Let's go with yes.
Okay, now let's go. Let's run through that whole same thing right there concerning knowledge, counsel, understanding, fear, power, and conservation. Do they exist?
It's really hard to say yes or no to these questions because they're not that simple.
No, they're not that simple. But as best as we can know, these immaterial constructs exist?
What were the immaterial constructs again? Wisdom and
first wisdom, and then knowledge, counsel, understanding, fear, as in respect, power, as in the ability to alter things or create things, and conservation. Don't waste stuff.
If you're asking if they exist, I would say yes, but again, it would differ from individual to individual.
Granted.
Okay.
Granted, easily granted. Yes, our how we understand or apply those things is very individualistic and very subjective. I totally agree. Okay, but what I just gave you was my description of God. So to me, my description of God, that set of ideals, do indeed objectively exist.
So why is it your description of God and not your description of the human mind, the natural human mind?
Why is it my? That's
why is God inserted into that?
I think that I can't have knowledge without wisdom.
Why can't you?
Because I have to know something that is true, and that takes wisdom.
So how do you know something's true? You don't.
There you go.
You don't know
I'm defeated.
True.
That's right. I'm defeated.
Right.
That's why it's God and not me.
Okay.
It literally can't be me. I don't have these things.
I would argue it can be you and it is you.
Okay.
You don't actually know what you're saying is objectively true. You're asserting it is because you're attributing it to God and to the supernatural.
No, I'm not saying anything supernatural.
You're not. Well, I guess, yeah. By the theist definition, God would not be supernatural. But you're attributing to God nonetheless, right?
Well, I think God is a set of immaterial constructs that humans value. So, yes, there's necessity of human mind in there, and I have a human mind. I'll agree with you.
So why would God rely on the necessity of the human mind?
Because those immaterial constructs only matter to emotional beings that have consciousness. It can't exist without that.
You don't think things can exist without emotion or emotional appeal?
I think emotional ideals can't exist without an emotional animal.
Emotional ideals can't exist without an emotional animal. Okay, so then what is your definition of what is the purpose of emotion?
Purpose?
Yeah.
That would indicate it was intentional.
Okay.
You mean what do we do with it?
Yeah, you seem to be saying that, and again, I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding.
It's the beginning of a conversation. Don't worry about that.
All right. It seems like you're saying emotion is evidence for the existence of God.
No, emotion is necessity for the existence of God.
Emotion is necessity. Well, I'll agree with that.
Pre-exists.
I'll agree that you need to be emotional to believe in God.
Yes, absolutely.
Then I would ask, what is the purpose of emotion? Or what is the purpose of emotion for anything that is inherently evil or inherently wrong? Even people are very, very emotional about very, very incorrect things.
Sure.
So
but then I could say that's a lack of God in their life.
How can you extinguish that this emotional reaction is of God and this emotional reaction is not?
Well, we don't know what the human animal exactly is yet, so we can't say what is perfectly good and what is perfectly evil or what the defining line is. We don't know. Which is where the Bible is correct, saying that thou shalt not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that we have not. We don't objectively know those things.
I would argue that we have a pretty decent idea of what
We do okay.
the human animal is.
But you just said certain people can think very different things are good.
Yes. Okay,
but then obviously we don't have a collective consensus objective opinion about what is good or evil.
Right. I never made the claim that we did.
No. I'm just supporting what I'd said. I'm just repeating what I'd already said. What I'm saying is we don't have it.
Right.
So if you ask me, why is it differed? I say it's because we don't have it.
So if we're talking about objective truth or objective morality, I would say that we have not been able to demonstrate that a consistent enough model to support that claim, because it's so wildly different. Even in our culture, like we think some things are not okay. Like I don't want to get too into jarring specifics, but we would think certain things are not okay. Well, there's another culture in the Middle East that think those things are okay.
Sure,
and they might actually outnumber us.
Sure.
So I would argue they're wrong. They would argue I'm wrong. So how do we measure what is objectively right or wrong?
We can't.
Right.
Which makes the Bible correct.
How does that make the Bible correct?
If I say you will not kick me off of my channel.
Okay.
What I just said was, maybe you're the world's best hacker. But what I just said is you don't have the right to. So that's a claim of righteousness. However, if I said you can't pick up your house, I don't mean you don't have the right to try. I mean you're physically incapable.
Okay.
Where the Bible says thou shalt not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there's two ways to understand that construction. You could, as the Christians normally do falsely, and it can't be continuously held throughout the text, which means they don't have a coherent understanding of the Bible, that you could read it as I forbid you. You can read it that as a claim of righteousness. But it's more consistent to read it as you don't have the ability, thou shalt not. You can't do it. There's nothing wrong with the construction, me saying, thou shalt not pick up your house. That's a fact. You just can't.
Right.
And I'm not claiming righteousness over you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not restricting you. And you're welcome to try. You can't do it.
Okay.
So I think it is objectively true and well stated more than once that we don't have an objective, clear, concise, agreed upon view of what good and evil are, which is obvious.
Right. I'd agree with you.
Okay. So I would assert from the Bible that what it's saying in the Garden of Eden is you can't do it, but someday I'm going to give it to you.
Oh, wow. There's a lot to unpack there. You'd say the Bible asserts that you don't have it yet, but I'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then who has he given it to?
You mean of this earth?
Yeah.
There's only one in the story who receives it, and that's the hero of the story in the case of Christianity, Christ.
Okay.
Which is what makes him the prophet. He has the truth first. That's why he's born of the dead, the first begotten born of the dead. That's why he is that.
Okay, so born of the dead, what does that mean?
Well, the dead are those who would die for disbelief. That is, they would stay on the earth and in an internal critique. I'm not asking you to accept this.
Sure.
On a truth value. But just that the text does assert that, oh my gosh, say your question again.
What does Born of the Dead mean? So is that a
Yes. So the
uh
group, the dead, are a group of non-believers, those that would perish if they don't accept it. To be born out of the dead is to be raised out of the dead, to be raised from the dead. That is, we're part of a group that didn't believe, became part of the group that does.
so you mean born of in the minds of those who did not believe?
Born in the minds of those who did not yet born due to the minds of those who don't believe.
Not yet born due to the okay.
Their mindset means that they will perish, according to the story.
Okay.
When they change their minds, they are born out of the dead.
Yeah. Well, my issue with that is you can make that claim about absolutely anything in absolutely any religion.
Sure,
I
I
get
do.
that all the time. You don't believe this because you don't have enough faith. You haven't seeked God enough, which
Okay,
every religion makes that same claim.
maybe they're right.
Maybe, but even if you said one of them is right, which one?
All of them?
All of them.
Yes, all of them. It's only Christian pride that makes a Christian say something else.
So the God of Islam, the God of Mormonism, all correct.
No, wait.
Is that a pantheistic?
If you're going to add in that people's beliefs on something and their subjective opinion is the objective truth, then I don't agree. But if you're asking me if there is an objective truth of the seven spirits of God, I'll say yes. And that it's universal. It's throughout religions.
Your assertion of an objective truth is inherently subjective, though. And it's the same claim that they all make.
To me, yeah. Sure.
And they all say that my opinion is this is absolutely true.
Well, they're right.
For them, yeah.
No, they're okay. Here's a little story I like.
Okay.
Try to imagine that I'm in a city and I'm a white guy. That's not too hard to imagine. And I'm from European descent because I am.
Relatable.
And my feet are super. I just wake up one moment and my feet are super glued to the street. And a blind bus driver is driving the city bus and he's going to hit me and kill me. No doubt. I'm even lined up with the tires. He's going to kill me. But along came a stampede of cattle. And in the parting crowd of cattle trying to get around me, one doesn't see me soon enough, and it much outweighing me, and in the force of its run, it knocks the bottom of my feet off, but saves my life. As a European descent American white male from a Christian heritage, I'm going to say, I wonder what thing started the stampede. And aren't I fortunate that there was that stampede? Now make me Hindu. That's an entirely different situation. Because that could have been my uncle or my grandmother that saved my life. It's not a random stampede anymore.
It's not a random stampede either way.
It's not. It doesn't have religious implications to me. If I were Hindi, it might.
It is, though, because even claiming that the stampede could be a reincarnation of your uncle or something, that's still a religious claim. It's still a claim.
No, that was the religious claim.
Right.
The accidental callback firing is a non-religious claim.
So you're saying through your perspective, that happened through divine intervention.
To my perspective, as a white American Christian, that just happened. I got lucky. That wouldn't be religious. To a Hindi man, please take the example for what it is.
Be like, oh, God saved me.
Possibly saved me with a cow, but not saved me with my uncle. But maybe okay. Let's make it very Christian.
Would be like, oh wow, what are the odds?
Well, that's more of the attitude that I actually have. So, and I was an atheist for a very long time. You'll forgive me for still thinking in that way, but
I still think the way of a Christian sometimes.
That's all right. We'll work with it. Okay, so my story is to exemplify what I think is obviously true in reality, that because of societal ideals and differences between those societies, you cannot tell the same story the same way. It's actually impossible.
Right. So which one's objectively true?
They're all objectively true. There are no differences between them, but societies
To the
and the way that
individual
people
experiencing
look at
it.
things. The
Right.
individual is different,
Yeah.
not the story.
Now, how much is that individual influenced by their culture, their surroundings?
Immensely.
Yeah. So how can you show which, if they all have this, they all make the same claim or a similar claim, and they all have the same justification for making that claim. So which one
what?
is true? Which one's objectively
They're true.
Yeah. Like, yeah,
Quit being so white.
You keep saying they're all true, but how can you make that claim? Because they're all inherently different claims. How can they all be true?
No, they're not inherently different. You are talking about your social prejudice.
Okay, so you think my absence of an opinion is a social prejudice?
No. I think you're saying religions differ is a social prejudice.
Okay. So you're saying that all religions are, in a sense, the same. Which, sure, you can. That's fine. We can go with that.
I think that comparative religion doesn't take into full account all of the social differences between the people who have these expressions. And if they did, they would see there are no differences between the stories. It's not that there's overlap. There's nothing but overlap.
All right. So I struggle to see how you make that claim that they're all the same in some sense. But at the same time, you'll reject the claim that it was a dead ancestor.
What?
That saved you.
I didn't reject the claim that it's a dead ancestor that saved that person. I never rejected that.
So then is it a dead ancestor? Is it a coincidence, or is it divine intervention?
Is it a coincidence, a dead ancestor, or divine intervention?
Yeah.
Well, it actually could be all of the above without being contradictive logically, but I think that our experience has been used in fairy tale form to describe a higher thing in such a way that if we were to have that, I don't know how to say that, decoded, that it would be telling us a truth. Like Goldilocks and the Three Bears is about respecting things that are different from you. It's not about a girl stealing soup and taking a nap.
So you think
from Talking Bears?
It is a unified struggle to understand the same truth.
That's fair.
Like, go with that?
Sure.
Okay. That's fair. You can say that. The problem is, like, that's a philosophical standpoint. The problem is you can yeah. And if that's what you want to believe, then that's fine. I personally would reject that because I don't believe in the supernatural at all.
I don't either.
Or like my wife practices witchcraft. She believes that the universe is sentient in some way and has some sort of influence on us. That's fine. You can believe that. But when you want to make specific claims about that supernatural belief, then it becomes a problem.
Sure. What I'm saying, though, is there's no such thing as the supernatural. There are things we don't yet understand.
Yeah. Well,
maybe science hasn't gotten that far. Whatever.
Right.
However, sometimes using fairies is the best way to explain to the Irish a truth that is not fairies.
Okay. I'm following you. I had something. It's gone.
Sorry.
Now. No, it's okay. I was about to completely demolish this debate, and it's gone now. It was going to be over if I had said that.
That was great. Unfortunately, I forgot it. So there you go.
I totally, convenient, right?
That was so convenient, yeah, for me.
Yeah. I'll just restate to keep the conversation going. No, okay, hold on. If the difference between the shit, all right. The problem is with theists is they claim that their claim is inherently natural when it's actually not, right?
Okay.
You'll say that what created the universe, and you'll say God.
Steady. No, I wouldn't.
I'm speaking hypothetical. You might say God, and I'll be like, what created God then? And you would probably say God is beyond our understanding. He's beyond time and space. He's always been there. We can't possibly understand.
Well, I'm not here to defend all Christians.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that.
Well, you're kind of asking me to, unless you're making an example of something else.
I'm trying to make an example of something else. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I'm trying to demonstrate the difference between the natural and supernatural because the theist, again, tries to make the claim that their claim is inherently natural. It's not supernatural, when in fact it actually falls under the definition of supernatural. The natural is defined by what we can observe.
Yeah.
We can't observe the supernatural. So the theist will say that everything that is observable is of the same nature as God. That's an unfalsifiable claim. You can say that.
Isn't that also a deistic position?
Yes, it is a deistic position.
Okay.
But a deistic position is also a theistic position, although a theistic position is not a deistic position. Square is not a rectangle, but a rectangle is a square. That whole thing, right? So, I'm thirsty. And I have a train in my ear.
Yeah, we're going to wait for that. It's fine. Don't worry about the dead air.
Can you hear it?
I could.
Okay. Yeah, I got a train station behind me. It's a huge pain in my ass.
Can no longer hear it.
Every now and then I make a TikTok and it appears and someone's like, did Thomas the Tank Engine just make a cameo in your TikTok?
That's great.
Anyway. So yeah, saying that appealing to a deity is still appealing to the supernatural, even though the theist, because we can't observe it.
We can't observe.
You can say that we can, but that's still a claim that you can't really back up.
Can I observe people displaying wisdom, knowledge, counsel, understanding, fear, power, and conservation?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
But those are natural processes, all of them.
I didn't say they weren't. I said they're natural to this animal that we are. And it's because we are emotional, conscious animals.
Right.
Okay, that's God.
But see, you're doing it right there. You're asserting that your claim is just as natural as the objectively observable and measurable natural processes, when in fact
was something I said not natural observable processes.
No, everything you said is natural.
Okay,
except for the claim to the divine.
I don't know what you're calling divine or what you think my definition of God is.
So you have the natural, again, the objective, observable, measurable. We can see it, we can measure it, we can understand it, we can recreate it in a lab, whatever.
Sure.
And then you'll come around and say that is all evidence of God. Well, it's not. We can explain how these things happen, and even if we couldn't, that's still a God of the gaps argument. Because just because we don't understand something in the natural terms doesn't mean it is inherently supernatural or inherently divine.
Why do you keep saying supernatural? I can't figure that part out.
Because what you're saying is natural, I'm saying is actually falls under the definition of supernatural.
What's supernatural about the 7 constructs of God?
The 7 constructs of God are natural. They're just called the constructs of God.
Yes. God is a total ideal set, which, according to the writings, is claimed by a major-sized group as being the perfect ideals for them, which they follow and exemplify in their lives. without fail,
Hmm.
but it's just social constructs.
So you attribute those to God and not.
What do you think I think God does?
You're saying the two are one and the same. You're
It
saying our
is the
natural
definition of
processes,
God.
our environmental upbringing and understanding is synonymous with God, when by definition it's not.
I don't understand.
Right?
Say it again.
We can
Maybe I
have
didn't.
morals, we can have consciousness, we can
Sure.
have wisdom completely on our own without any
Yes.
help from God.
What do you
But
mean
that
help
you
from
would-
God? You just defined God.
There you go. Wait, you're over here. There you go. You just made the assertion that everything that I just said is of God.
It is the totality. Well, there's lots of repercussions to what you just said.
Yeah, and that's
Like empathy and humanitarian effort and lots of stuff.
that's your position, and I could say no, it's all natural, but you would add an extra step and be like,
Where's the extra
that's
step?
That's because of God. And I
What
would
do
say
you mean?
no, it's not.
God
because of
doesn't
God, it's because
cause
of
us to
natural.
have emotions. Our emotions cause the existence of God.
I would agree with that 100%.
Well, that's what I believe is true because it's just evidently true and what the Bible claims.
The Bible claims that emotions are the
The beginning of creation of God.
again, I would agree with that.
Well, it's just evidently
God.
true. Yes, we create God.
From our emotion. That doesn't mean he inherently exists because man created him. He may
Do we
exist
have
in
emotions?
their minds, but he doesn't exist outside of their minds.
No one ever claimed. Okay, no one should claim that he does.
Right. So your evidence of the existence of God is confined to everyone's mind. Why?
That's why God is omnipresent in the experience of human being.
See, the concept of like gravity does not exist in our mind. We can observe it. We can measure it.
That's not an immaterial construct.
I can
incomparable.
believe in unicorns. I can believe wholeheartedly in unicorns. In my
You have
mind,
to use something, if you don't mind, use something
real.
immaterial to make your example.
So, say that one more time.
Please use something immaterial to make your example.
Something immaterial.
Right.
But why should I have to?
Because I'm talking about something immaterial. You have to stay on topic.
Okay. All right, I'll play your game. Something immaterial. Something immaterial that we... The only thing I can think of is something supernatural, like a ghost or a spirit. I can't think of anything tangible that exists only in our head because that goes against the very definition.
Show me some love.
Love is just a chemical reaction in our brains.
Can you cut off an ounce of love and hand it to me? No, we experience it materially. That's not the same as That's not the same as love is material. How we experience it is through material. I agree.
How we experience it is the result of a chemical reaction in our brain. I can remove that chemical and give it to you, and I would not experience love anymore.
That's fine. You wouldn't be able to experience it. I didn't really want to get into the hard problem of consciousness, though.
I'm not getting to consciousness.
That's where this is going. This is going directly to the hard problem of consciousness.
I don't know anything about consciousness. I really don't.
Well, none of us do. That's the problem. That's why it's so hard.
Right.
But,
exactly.
But going back to immaterial versus material constructs.
Yeah.
There are physical things. There are things unphysical, immaterial, literally. There is no experience of blue in the physical. Now, how your brain understands and experiences blue is physical, but the experience of it itself is not physical.
The emotions attached to it is what you mean.
No, your experience of those emotions are, again, physical. In your physical self, that's fine.
Yes.
I wish I knew how to say that better. There's people who say this much better than I do.
Oh, I was saying, I have that problem all the time.
Okay,
So
let's choose an emotional state. Indifference.
again, just every emotion is a chemical reaction in our brain and a result of
No,
outside stimuli,
indifference is not caring.
which is an absence of those chemicals.
Right, which means it has no material construct.
It's indifferent. It's default by default.
Hand me some chemical that causes indifference.
There is no chemical that causes indifference. Is caused by a lack of chemicals, to my understanding.
Right, so there's nothing to hand me at all.
No, I can hand you evidence that something is missing. That's how we know we have mental illnesses.
I'm asking you for a something
missing.
But you're claiming there must be a something for. You said everything's material. Indifference is not material.
You don't even have to use indifference. You can use like depression. Depression is the result of a lack of dopamine. I can't show you depression. I can't be like, this causes depression. I can't do that. What I can show you is what causes happiness is absent, which leads us here, right? It's like dryness is the absence of water. Darkness is the absence of light. I can't hand you darkness, but I can show you that darkness exists without light present, right?
That's fair. Maybe my example doesn't work very well. I'll have to reconsider the example. I think that it's true. I may not be able to show that it's true. That there are immaterial constructs based on our emotions.
Yeah, I would, again, just have to ask for an example. Which, if you can't give, that's fine. Or if you would need more time to come up with something, that's fine.
I think a strict materialist is ignoring the hard problem of consciousness.
Well, see, now we're getting into consciousness.
I didn't want to.
I thought you were trying to avoid it.
I am trying to avoid it. That's why I don't want to go down that road, because it's unsolvable according to the best minds that we have, which is not mine. But
well, from what I understand,
it's normally asserted that there are immaterial constructs that exist because of our condition, which has nothing to do with the physical whatsoever. And all I'm claiming that God is a set of constructs, ideals that are listed, and in an understandable order, they make sense to be in that order. And that those social constructs, it could be true, are the perfect governors for a free society, which is what's being claimed.
The perfect governor. Oh wow! The perfect governor for a free society.
Yes.
Okay. You're claiming that God is the ultimate path to that.
God is the ultimate path to that. No, God is the result of that.
The result of that.
We don't have that. There is no path for us. You have to be given that path. You can't just create it yourself or figure it out. It's too complicated. And we don't have all the necessary knowledge.
Right, and we never will, because there's so many differing ideas, most commonly about the nature of God. We're always going to be divided as a species, and it actually doesn't begin with a religion. It begins with tribalism, and religion is just a result of tribalism. But
both those naturally follow, sure.
Yeah. So until God decides he wants us to be in, even if God proved that he was real, right, we would still argue over our ideas about him, where he came from, how to worship him properly, what are his characteristics. We would still argue and fight and go to war over those things. We can all agree universally that God is real because he has shown us that he's real. We're still going to fight because we're inherently tribal, right? And God made us that way.
I don't know why you keep saying God makes things. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree. I'm appealing to the theist mind.
Well, the theist is nonsensical.
Again, I agree.
I mean, there can't be something supernatural. There can only be things we don't yet know.
Again, agree.
Okay. And when someone appeals to logical impossibilities, they're being literally illogical.
If they appeal to logical impossibilities, they're being illogical.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And they do.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't want to talk about them.
Okay.
I think it's a waste of your time, and I know it's a waste of mine.
That's fair.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand your position.
My position is that heaven is much like the United States.
Your position is a little bit different than what I'm used to.
That's understandable.
So I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting you.
No, I think you're doing a great job for some brain you haven't spoken to. That's yeah. No, absolutely smashing. Actually, okay. So a set of social constructs would be much like, I don't know, the Bill of Rights or the, what's the other damn thing?
Constitution.
Yeah, that thing. It would be something like that. And when you agree, all you independent sovereign nation people, I laugh at you. When you agree to stay on that landmass, you have, by doing that, agreed to the laws of that land. I don't care if you think you're exempt or not. You stayed, which means you agreed to it by default.
I would disagree with that.
Really? How?
Yeah. You don't have to agree with the laws of your land just because you can't escape it.
No, but you had admitted submission to them by staying. That's why they can arrest you.
No, they arrest you because you don't agree.
That's why they're able to arrest you, is because you submitted yourself by staying. And you don't agree, and you don't follow it.
Staying or leaving is not always an option. Sometimes you don't have any other option other than to stay.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. There's financial restrictions, and you didn't necessarily cognitively agree. However, you're still there. And that's how you're subject to those laws.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just, sorry, that's not the point at all. So if I agree to be a U.S. citizen under the Constitution and Bill of Rights, then I have agreed to those specific things, which means really I should read them, but I haven't because I don't care.
Most haven't. Very
and
few
those
have.
things are the God of the United States. They're a set of immaterial constructs agreed upon by society, held by some portion of, in this case, the people who live in that society. Now, that is all that the Bible claims of God. What Christians claim, I don't care.
Okay. So you're saying...
So like, if the president of the United States, whoever's sitting at that moment, I don't care about that either, perfectly represents all of these laws and ideals that are held as the United States as a collective, they are given permission, approved to go out and be a messenger and be the United States in that moment. This is the same thing as a messenger or angel does in the case of heaven. And that's why it is both either an angel or God. It is both and either. An individual and God simultaneously. And God has no physical being. Just like our Constitution has no physical being.
Which is still an unfalsifiable claim.
Why?
Because you're saying that, again, natural processes, you're attributing natural processes to God. We know how the government works. It can change in an instant, depending on who's elected.
Because we don't agree.
The people being governed can rebel, disagree.
That's also because we don't agree.
Be arrested. So then how is this a unifying... now I'm having trouble.
For us now, it's not. which is what it claims about us, that for us now it's not. It says that in no uncertain terms. You don't get this, and you're not going to until we hand it to you.
Because they're the governing authority.
No, they are in a society where they 100% agree on their set of ideals, their constitution. We're in a society where we don't agree on our constitution.
Right. So how do we get God from that?
Their word God, often mistranslated as being magical by the theist, it's their constitution. It's the highest thing. It is the law of the land. It's the only thing worth worshiping.
Okay. You have a very pantheistic approach, I think.
Okay.
That is to say that God is everything and everything is God.
What do you mean by everything?
Like God is in everything. God is a part of everything.
God is in consciousnesses.
Right.
It's not part of any rock, and he's not in your butthole.
Well, sure.
Okay.
I'm saying like more in the minds of people.
In the minds of people, yes. Or at least will be eventually, not necessarily right now in our situation, obviously.
So then what's taking him so long?
You mean why divine hiddenness?
I know you can't answer that. I'm just saying.
Actually, I can answer that if that's what you meant.
Okay, sure. Let's hear it.
Another thing that's going to sound new to you unless you know me. There's a description of multiple occurrences of Earths within these religious stories.
Right.
And I do mean
narratives.
Pretty damned universally. What?
So different creation narratives, you mean? Like,
no.
Okay.
Like we're going into the fourth age in a Native American expression, that after God takes control of this planet, that Jesus and God take control of this planet, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. It literally says it. That this is an occurrence of an earth. This is not the only earth ever anywhere. Now, Christians say it is out of just personal pride, but the text demands otherwise. Even the text they read and cherry pick demands otherwise. So, because there will be a future earth that we will be governing, tending to, physically terraforming, making it what it needs to be so that more of our kind, yes, that's selfish, can live on it. But it's not disturbing anybody else, so it's not that bad. One of the claims is that there's no life here when we start these processes. So we're not disturbing existent life. So because of that, we need to have this experience for an amount of time until we're invited into that larger society that is much more established and much more technologically advanced. And we join them in that effort of increasing human. Put it that way.
So you're saying that there is the belief in a new Earth across multiple cultures that don't have communication with one another.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's not. I don't have any knowledge of that. I mean, a little bit. The apocalyptic literature is
sure
pretty nuanced in between them. But even if that were the case, it's not extraordinary to imagine why that would be, because they lived under very, very harsh conditions. People were dying of tooth decay at a very early age. So it was very easy to fantasize about a perfect world that would come and save them all. Right?
What? You're talking about heaven.
No.
I'm talking about another flawed world is part of the story.
Oh, another flawed world.
Yeah. not heaven. I didn't even talk about that.
No, I'm not saying heaven at all. That's not even biblical. Because
to say the new world that is perfect is to say heaven.
Okay. I would make a distinction between heaven and the coming kingdom of God, but that's fine.
Some religions do. I just don't think it can be held up by the actual original religion, and they're usually recent offshoots that assert those sorts of things.
So I'm just trying to understand here. A new heaven across multiple culture, or no, new heaven, sorry, a new earth that is also flawed is going to appear by the account of multiple cultures, and is going to be better but less flawed.
Human nature, it will be flawed in exactly the same ways that this one is. They'll be in disagreements for a time. They'll be of low technology for a time. They would not be ready to accept becoming part of some intergalactic community as the ancestry already are. They wouldn't be able to do those things for a time.
Okay. At that point, I would have to ask to see these multiple similar stories. I'm aware of multiple creation accounts that differ slightly. I'm aware of different views of the afterlife. I'm not aware of any cultural, like, somewhat unifying idea that there's going to be another flawed Earth. That one's new to me.
Can you tell me 2 Genesis stories from different religions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The Amur Papyra, the Enuma Elish, and Genesis. The Amur Papyra is 2,000 years older than Genesis. The Impure Papyrus is a reference to Exodus, not Genesis. The Impure Papyra is 2,000 years older than Genesis. The Epic of Gilgamesh is 1,000 years older than Genesis. And 3 similar stories that obviously borrowed from one another. And
you meant Exodus, right?
No, Genesis and Exodus are taken from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Oh, you mean like Enkidu as Adam, something like that?
Kinda.
I'm having trouble extracting
I'm
Genesis.
Sorry. Not Exodus, the flood narrative, Noah's Ark. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not what I asked for.
No, I gave you that. Genesis, the Amur Papyrus, and the Epic of Gilgamesh are all different ideas about the same creation narrative. One obviously inspired by the other. The Epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish also have elements of the flood narrative, just like Genesis does. Genesis and the flood narrative are together. The Amur Papyra and Genesis they're all lumped. It's 2 stories that we paint. I mean,
literally the Genesis, not any destruction, but the Genesis itself, the Genesis story, which is what the book is named after. You'll notice it's not called the flood. It's not called the destruction. It's called the Genesis. I'm asking you for 2 Genesis stories from different religions.
That there are tons.
The Islam, beginning. You can choose any one. It's okay.
The secret gospel of John talks about Sophia created everything out of nothing. Are you saying that Christianity is the unique statement that?
I'm saying it's so not unique. It's actually universal.
It's not universal, though, because they don't appear at the same time in different places. They're always hundreds or thousands of years after one another.
Why do they need to be the same moment?
Traveled. What's that?
Why? I'm not disagreeing with that. Why do they need to be simultaneous?
Because if one story appears and then 500 or 1,000 years later a similar story appears in a different area, that's evidence that the story has traveled.
Right.
It's spread. But if
I'm asking you for two different beginning narratives. The beginning of man narrative. Two of them.
There's tons of them.
Go ahead.
Again, the secret gospel of John. Sophia created Adam and Eve.
The secret gospel of John.
Yeah, it's a Gnostic gospel from the second century.
You're going to refer to something that's not in any standard religion anywhere. Could you pick something from two standard religions somewhere?
Do you know why it's not a part of the standard religion? Because it was destroyed. It was rediscovered in Egypt about 40 years ago. But it dates back. Yeah. It dates back to the 2nd century because it was referenced by Suetonius.
Okay.
In his writings. So we know it's from the 2nd century or prior, but we just discovered it like 40 years ago.
Okay, I haven't read it. Would you tell me the story? I was hoping you'd go with two things that already people know, but okay, we'll do this.
It's a long one. So Sophia wanted to create the universe.
Sophia means?
Wisdom in Greek.
Thank you.
It's a Greek goddess of wisdom. She wanted to create a universe or a reality even. But she was the wife of the supreme god. Supreme God did not want that to happen. It said no, and she did it anyway without his help. She literally gave birth to a god named Yaldabaoth. I mess up his name all the time.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Yaldabaoth. Anyway, so Yaldabaoth is created, and he's kind of like Yahweh in this, comparable to the Christian literature. He's kind of like Yahweh. He does not. He thinks he is God. He thinks he's the only one. He doesn't have knowledge that he's created. So he creates angels, and he creates two other beings like him. One being Samael, which is kind of where we get the idea of, or which is attributed to the serpent in the Garden of Eden later, but that's a whole other thing. And then he creates all these angels, and he tells these angels to create man. He creates 365 angels. I have it right here next to me. He creates 365 angels, and he tells them to create man, and they all create a different body part. Like this angel creates this rib, this angel creates this rib, and that's Adam. That's how Adam is made. He's not made from the dirt. 365 angels
doesn't read from the dirt anyway.
Well, all right. But that is one creation narrative that is similar, but different from a different religion. But it's a religion that is not really around anymore because it was eradicated. It was a Gnostic belief, or a Gnostic sect that the early church eradicated because they disagreed with it.
Okay, so angels, according to this, created individual body parts for Adam.
Right.
So it says Adam.
It does. And Eve. Eve is created later.
That's also in the biblical Genesis narrative.
Right. But this story is much older than Genesis. But Genesis is much younger than the Enuma Elish. So it's the same story that evolved.
I have to ask you to slow down. I haven't had a chance to even talk about what you had already said.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm letting you choose these. I'm just trying to comment on them. Okay. In the Bible, it reads Elohim created Adam. The word Elohim there is the plural of Eloach, which would be a singular powerful being. I know you know this. Where Elohim would be a plural powerful beings.
The singular form is El Elyon. In the beginning was God. In the beginning was El. El created everything. The Elohim is referring to the Canaanite pantheon. El's children.
A collective.
Asherah. Right.
A collective of powerful beings.
But specifically the children of El.
Yes.
In Canaanite mythology, which far predates Genesis, there was El and Asherah, his wife.
That sounds like confirmation to me.
Confirmation that there's multiple gods?
No. Confirmation that the story is older than Christians think.
Yeah.
That doesn't falsify a story that it's old.
No, but it demonstrates how it's been changed and manipulated over time.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to address.
Okay. So this is all biblical, by the way. Sophia, again, is mentioned in Proverbs chapter 8. Not by name, but by concept, by wisdom. She is God's wisdom. It actually says in Proverbs 8, you're probably familiar, I existed with God before everything was created. That is Sophia. Psalms 82, Psalms or Proverbs 82. The divine counsel of El. El assembles the Elohim and tells them that he will kill them all like men, because Yahweh was the jealous God. He was given power over...
Please don't tell us why. That's speculation.
Why?
Don't tell us why that's in the story. That's speculative.
I'm not making speculative. I'm making textual observations. Yahweh is a jealous God, right? He was in the divine council. They were each given their own tribe to rule over.
Yahweh, I haven't finished commenting yet on what you started to say.
Oh, okay. You paused, so I thought you...
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't pause.
Okay.
So Elohim, not identified as good or bad, a group able to do certain things, is in both of those stories. I don't know why that's different. And I might ask you for clarity as to why that's different or why you chose that, because I don't understand why to bother choose it when it's the same story, apparently. But could you please give me a second religion with a different formation of man narrative?
I thought I already did.
Could you tell me the story of this second religion with a different creation of man narrative?
Zoroastrianism.
Would you tell us the story,
Christianity?
please?
I couldn't recite it off the top of my head.
Why do you keep saying predates? I mean, you're right. That's fine.
Okay.
I just don't know why it's important to say. And I'm starting to feel like it's combative.
You seem to be saying, still trying to understand your position. Okay. Good morning. So you want me to show you multiple religions that have a similar creation narrative?
Just the beginning of man's story in any two given religions is all I've asked for.
There are tons of them. I can't recite them for you off the top of my head. Are you saying that there aren't any, or there are? Are you
I'm saying
they're
the same story. I want to dispel the myth that there's differences between the stories. You said there's a lot of them. You're welcome to pick any two
between them.
I'd love to hear them.
I can't recite them off the top of my head.
Aside
from the Secret Gospel of John and the Impure Papyrus.
And the what?
The Impure Papyrus, the Enuma Elish, where Tiamat battles. Again, can't remember the specific names of the god, but he battles the gods, battles another god, rips her in half, and uses her body to create the heavens and the earth. That's in the Enuma Elish. Dagon battles Tiamat. Dagon kills Tiamat, rips her in half, and uses half her body to create the heavens and the other half to create the earth.
And then
he enslaves all of mankind because they're too loud, or something like that.
Okay, so mankind's too loud, but there comes a hero to save them, even though the gods would have done with them. would be done with them. Have them no more. Kill them off.
Right. He enslaves them because there's more value to them alive so that they can do their bidding. They can build their temples and everything.
Okay, so they're enslaved for a time. So I really wanted the creation of man narrative, but we can do this instead. So can you give me another story of the beginnings of civilization of man from a different religion?
So much, but I'm not getting much from you. I don't.
What do you want?
I'm trying to give you what
I'll
you
give
want,
you
but
anything
I'm
you
not
want.
really understanding what you're trying to get to.
They're all the same.
Okay.
The difference is social differences.
I would argue that one is the earliest, and the later ones were inspired by the earliest.
Oftentimes, that's true.
Okay.
Call it an homage.
Right.
That's fine. I'm not debating that.
But the earliest creation narrative we have is polytheistic. The later ones absorbed all those other gods into the same god.
No, there is no monotheism anywhere in any religion. That's a Christian concept, which can't be shown in the Bible.
I would agree with that.
It can't be shown. If God is a set of immaterial constructs, as the Bible demands and describes, and angels are a collective that are exercising it, which it demands and describes, then this Elohim is a plural, which it demands and describes. But
Correct.
That's not God. That's people acting on God. That's beings acting on God.
So you're saying God exists outside of all that, of man's ideas about.
Don't know why you would think that.
Again, just trying to understand.
Okay, ideals are emotionally based constructs for running a society, which involves an emotional consciousness as a necessity, predating chronologically those ideals.
I would ask
you
you
have to have a
that.
body and then a brain and then emotions, and then you can have ideals.
Which are all material.
I don't care if they are material. I'm not going to argue that.
Okay.
They are listed in an internal critique. They are what they are. You can call them material. It's not worth arguing.
Okay.
But even if they are material, they still exist. And if they're immaterial, they still exist.
If you're going to say material things are evidence for the divine or a deity, then we're back to square one.
What's deity mean to me?
Whatever you want it to mean.
Okay, I mean it as a set of material.
I don't believe in the supernatural, but
what do you mean you don't believe in deity?
You have a different definition than I do. Right.
Okay, can we agree on a definition?
We'll say I'm a materialist. We'll say it that way. But even
fine,
then,
let's be materialists.
Even then, you would say all that material is of God or a part of God or evidence of God.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh man! All right.
I literally don't know what you're talking about when you say that.
I don't know what you're talking about. And
okay, well, let's try to bridge that some.
I really am.
Human beings exist.
Okay.
Now, no matter where you want to put the line, somewhere there's a line between not human being and human being across the scale of animals.
Okay.
There's a line somewhere. I don't care where the line is. You can arbitrarily put it wherever the hell you want. But there's definitely human beings alive today. Okay?
Yeah, that was never mind. That's off topic. Sorry.
So there must have been a first human being male and a first human being female. There must have been.
So was there first a first animal?
I would think so. Somewhere, somehow. I'll even go with I'll even put a big thumbs up on abiogenesis. I don't care.
Yeah, if there's a first male and a first female, then what was the first animal? What was the first plant? What was the first?
A blue-green algae, I think, was the first plant. The first animal, you can't call it an animal because it's an animal plant. I mean, it has a gut tube, but can
Yeah.
you really call that an animal because it has a gut? Well, you have to draw the line somewhere, but the line's pretty damned arbitrary,
that's the
actually.
thing is, you don't have to draw a line at all, because
I understand what you're saying.
any line you draw is arbitrary by definition.
Yes, it is.
So,
But if the terms mean something, we have to draw a line somewhere. I'm just going to say Homo sapiens sapien.
which is just a word to describe a line that we've drawn, which is
arbitrary.
And those lines are just drawn so that we can refer to a certain thing. We can't say.
You don't want me to make up new terms.
No.
Is it okay if I use existent terms?
Sure. That's what I'm saying. That's why those existent terms are in place. So
we can talk about it.
What we're trying to describe.
Sure. Okay, so there is Homo sapiens sapien. There is, I'm going to say man.
Okay.
There is man. All right. So there must have been a first man, male and female. There must have been somehow. Now, that animal had enough consciousness and awareness that it also had emotions. Because of that situation, it realized that it needed sets of things to govern a population that was growing.
Okay.
So it sat and thought about that. And maybe through trial error, maybe it wasn't what they claim is perfect from the start, but eventually it became the set that we're being introduced to, which is God.
So you think we haven't evolved yet into an understanding of God?
Haven't evolved. No, I think it has to be handed to us. I don't think we're going to evolve into it.
Okay.
And here's why. This is going to be super weird, and I apologize for that, but I don't have a choice.
Go ahead.
Like something I say sounds normal, but anyway. Oh my gosh, Peebo. They're not conscious. They're not aware at your level, bro. You do need constructs. If you have children, you've developed constructs to run their lives. I got distracted by side chat. I shouldn't have read it. I apologize to you personally.
I do the same thing.
Could you repeat what you'd last said, no matter what it was?
Not sure if I can do that now.
I said
comments, help me out.
Intelligence with emotion for a growing society developed.
Okay, I said so you think we're going to eventually evolve into the idea of God, or into an understanding of God, and you said no, it has to be handed to us.
Yes. And then I said this is going to get weird, and for that I apologize, but I have no choice about it. In very general terms, without us getting too technical in what we happen to have learned about modern science, there's a difference between a chimpanzee and a human being. And some of that difference is protein coding. And the protein coding difference, let's not argue the exact number that varies. Let's just say 2.5%. If that's within the ballpark, fine.
I have no idea.
Well, you've heard it 1,000 times in your life in cartoons and children books, and it's 1% different between human and chimpanzee. You've heard this. It's actually 2.3. I'm just rounding off to make it easy. It's about 2.3% different in comparable genetics between a chimpanzee or a bonobo chimpanzee and a human being. Okay, that's the protein coding difference. The non-coding portions of our DNA is somewhere between 5 and 10% not coding of the total genetic material. I'm being very conservative here. I'm trying to be way lowballing.
I actually did my thesis on the Human Genome Project.
Oh, great. So you already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so we have genetic material that is not physically represented in us.
Correct.
Okay. So let's lowball it. And just for easy math, I use 2.5 and I'm going to use 5% different here. But these things are exponential. The difference in awareness and consciousness between the difference between a chimpanzee and a human, let's say that's 2.5 for an example, and in your genetic potential unrealized is double that. This means that our understanding of like math right now in our best examples, say Gödel or say Einstein or say whoever you want, they are basically retarded compared to the potential that they never realized. As an example. That doesn't have to be actually true. It's only an example.
Okay.
We might be no better at math fully evolved.
Okay.
What they're claiming is that they free our genome and we self-realize naturally because that stuff starts coding. And they say it in the Bible like this: the promises of the kingdom of God are within you. Literally within you. The tree of life is within you. It's already in the garden. It's not somewhere else.
What's it called?
You could call it a presentism fallacy. You could call it false equivocation. You could call it...
It's an arbitrary fallacy, but that's not the right word.
Okay.
It's like arbitrariness fallacy. Again.
Post hoc?
It's when you present something that is so arbitrary or ambiguous that you can make it say whatever you want.
No, that's not true.
The word of God is revealed in us.
Because in the book of Genesis, in chapter 6, it says, "Yet that man is flesh, his days shall be numbered 120 years." And then in Isaiah, it says that we are made a little lower than angels. No, I'm not just making... it can't just fit anywhere and there's no definition.
Okay.
And then also it says that the promises of the kingdom of God are within you and that you are gods, yet you will die like men. It says all of those things.
You are gods, you will die like men is referring to the divine councils, not referring to men.
Right.
Okay, so
would you believe that's an hour and a half?
The time we've been here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, was that the time you were shooting for?
Nope.
Oh, you're trying to...
I do have bodily requirements, and over time they make themselves evident.
Oh, yeah, I feel you there. Yeah, I'm going to need to get going here soon. But what was your point in stating that?
We're genetically restricted. The promises of heaven is our genetic freedom. That would be approximately equivalent to the full evolution of a human being into their genetic potential, which is what angels are.
Oh, wow. The true potential of men is in our genetic... It's something like... It's a very high percentage. I can't remember much. But most of our DNA is called non-coding DNA. You can code DNA, but most of it is non-coding. But what we've learned is that the non-coding is palindromatic in nature. And it seems to serve to transfer information from one codable to another codable strand. The non-coding is not going to suddenly become coding. Its non-coding already serves a purpose. We're not really sure what that purpose is. Go ahead. Sorry.
When you're saying non-coding, you're talking about protein coding.
DNA
versus
coding.
Not protein coding. That's what your argument is.
I don't know if it's considered a protein or not, but it's all DNA or strands of DNA.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm not asking you if you're talking about the physical structure of DNA. I'm not referring to that, and I don't think you are.
Okay.
But epigenetics, controlling of the lower echelon, and some of that lower echelon creates proteins. But the epigenetics do not create any proteins. I never said they do. I don't think that they do. And it's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about things that aren't even epigenetically controlling something. They're literally doing nothing. They don't get read.
That's
which accounts for some 5 to 20% of our total genetic material.
That's the non-coding DNA you're referring to.
It's non-functional.
It is functional.
No, I'm talking about I'm not talking about what you just referred to in epigenetics versus protein coding and all that.
I think we're referring to the same thing. I really do.
Do you think that 100% of our DNA codes?
No, not by a long shot. But just because our DNA doesn't code doesn't mean it doesn't serve a purpose. It doesn't mean it just means we don't understand the non-coding DNA.
We understand the codable DNA. Do you think that 100% of it is active?
Yes.
How old is that information?
20, 30 years.
Go look again.
Why?
Because that's not accurate.
Okay. What is accurate then?
What is accurate is some of it does squat. As far as we can tell, some of it does absolutely nothing right now. Some estimates are as high as 20% of the total. Some are as low as 5% of the total. I went with 5.
Okay. Even if that's true, that's a God of the gaps argument. Just because we don't understand, if there's a portion that doesn't code and seems to have no purpose.
No, we do know what it would do if it was active. We've had the ENCODE.
How do we know what it would do if it was active?
Because it's a set of code, and we see that code elsewhere. And then we can say, well, this code is that code over there. It does that in this thing. It would do that in us. I know that's hugely oversimplified. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Kreia. The ambiguity fallacy. That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Okay. That would be fair if it were true.
Yeah. Islam is particularly bad at that.
Religious people are often bad about that.
Yeah, they are. They go a little bit above and beyond the standard, by my experience. They'll take a verse in the Quran and say that it's referring to quantum physics and subatomic particles, and like this is actually talking about the magnetic wavelength of the Earth. This is talking about subatomic particles. Like
I don't think I'm doing that. I think there's enough definition within the text and separate. Thank you.
Not to that level, anyway.
Not that level, anyway. I don't think I'm doing that at all. And if I am, I'd love to be aware of it. But I think there's enough definition throughout the text that I can say it is definitely talking about this kind of a scenario and not some other.
So how can we get to a point where we can kind of agree and end things on a mutual a place of mutual understanding?
I would invite you to restate your position or give an overview or both, and then I would do the same thing.
Okay. My position is that all we have is what we have. I'm a strict materialist. We can only assert claims about things that we can observe as naturally occurring, as being observable, measurable, recreatable in some way, shape, or form. That is the only thing that is has those things are the only things that have enough sufficient evidence to reasonably believe. And anything outside of that criteria would be appealing to a claim to the supernatural.
I believe in strict materialism. I think that all things are material and that there is nothing supernatural. And that our experiences of emotional states and ideals and immaterial constructs, because we have experienced them, even subjectively, are then real in our experience, which is physical.
Okay.
This is now what I would assert there is this is well supported by not only the Bible, but repeatedly in many religions of the same ilk. not of the same ancestry. It doesn't require that.
Okay. All right.
I'd love to have a second date, sweetheart.
Maybe one day.
You're a good argument. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. You definitely asked me some questions I've never been asked before. So I had to think differently than I'm used to. So I appreciate that.
That's fun, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
It is. Well, I enjoyed it a lot. I thank you immensely. Once again, thanks for your dad work. You are a very important human being to some very young humans. I appreciate that work. And also, thanks for being here like on time and cogent and sober and all that stuff. And also, you make some pretty decent arguments. And also, everybody check out show your work, sir, please. Your public work.
Yeah, I'm again primarily on TikTok, but I have a YouTube show that I want to put more focus on. It's called Nerds Plus Heresy, or you can just type in Captain Dadpool, or there's a link in my bio and pretty much any of my social media presences, be it Twitter, Instagram, whatever. So yeah, I'd appreciate the interaction with any of those.
And of course, if you send me those links, they'll be in the description of this video by tomorrow.
All right, I'll try to do that.
But only if you send them to me today, because I can't work magic.
All right, I will do that as soon as we're done here.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed it enough that you would do this again sometime, and I hope it would be sooner rather than later.
All right, we'll see.
I know I certainly enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Captain Dadpool. Thanks everybody who attended. Peace and respect to you all. And until next time, I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends.
Agreed. Good night, everyone.
Good night.